How we doing, folks? A few more bits done on the Starfire. All the tank bits now have finished and they fit quite nicely. So we had this is actually a front Starfire tank mount which fits the Fleet Star rear, so that sits there quite nicely. This was the exhaust rubber that I modified on the Linisher, cut the middle piece out. That now becomes the front tank mount. Then, because of the steering stops, I wanted more steering lock. The tank had to be dropped back a little bit, so we made this thing. So this is just a bit of flat bar which gives, instead of bolting off here, this now allows it to drop back a little bit. So that fits in there quite nicely. And it's slightly different mounting for the rubber for the central point, whereas the original one you kind of had a Diablo shaped twice the size of this rubber. So I've actually ground this down. I've still kept the steel inserts, so you're pulling down steel on steel, and ground another one down on the Linisher for the top, and the tank gets constrained between the two rubbers. So that's worked out quite well. So happy with the tank. I've got a few more bits on. Oil tank's on, and I found the battery tray, which also then allowed me to work out the correct route for the clutch cable, which will now be above these tank side rubbers, which I also had to take about 4mm off each side of these on the Linisher because they were very tight going on. So now the tank slides on and off quite nicely. The clutch cable sits in between these two rubbers quite nicely, and the routing works out quite well. It just sweeps down, follows the frame down. I'll put an extra bit of rubber on there in case she does rub on anything, and then back through the casing onto the clutch arm. So I'm happy with that bit. The seat, I did say we had a few different seat covers, and I was thinking about putting a single seat on it, but what I've gone for is I stripped out the original seat. It was quite manky. I've had to weld a few patches on the inside. There was a few cracks on it, and I've actually welded 2 new bolts in there as well. Obviously we made this last time, the aluminium support, which has got a slightly forward bias, so I've got a nice close gap between the Fleet Star tank and this seat. And I don't think this is an original seat. I actually think it's a C15 SS80 seat. It's not quite the right shape. I had to modify the hump to fit the foam, and then our new piece of channel bar aluminium for the front. But the seat, you know, it's quite tidy, so we may end up keeping that. And what I used for keeping the material on nice and tight, I've done this a few times on a few different bikes. It's this stuff. It's like if you have a car bodywork where you've got a bit of exposed metal where you may have spot welded 2 pieces together, like round the boot lid or something, then they put this stuff on, and you just buy it by the metre off Fleabay. And this is actually like an aluminium inside, and it taps on and it really grips quite well. So, and it makes the seat look quite tidy. So it's only cheap stuff, good. Then the shocks, I did the shocks a couple of weeks ago, but just what I had to do, these were the Bonnie Thruxton shock absorbers, which are a little bit longer because now we've put the trials tyre on. Even though it's an 18-inch, it's a 4-inch instead of I think the 3.5 for standard width, but it has a deeper profile, so it's about 38mm taller, so you needed that little bit more extra space for clearance for the mudguard. But these are 14mm, these holes, and the stub on the bottom is 3/8 or nearly close enough to 10mm, so you have to make a small tube to go on there, so 3/8 up to that diameter there to make it up. Fits quite nicely. The top's a bit awkward, or not awkward, but a bit more difficult. So I think, can't remember what these were. They may have been 3/8. I've opened them up to 10mm, so I can get a 10mm stainless bolt in there. But there's your 14. So I've made these things so like a top hat that goes in, and then the washer sits on the outside of it, so that you're still clamping down on the centerpiece. So that worked out quite nicely for that. So then we come to the Royal Oilfield or Royal Enfield £25 chrome chain guard, which is what we were fitting this time. So I've had a few ideas with this. I'm keeping this original on here, and what I've done, I've cut this back one off here and I've folded it because it's nice chrome over there, and I've bolted that on there, and I've used a very slim pan head screw, so they've got plenty of clearance for the chain. You have to cut a bit off the front of it, so a little bit of creative grinding or cutting with a disc cutter, and it will go in. So obviously we did the back wheel last time with the QD, the quickly detachable element to it. There was a few issues when I put this back. Obviously it must have been way out. I think the original sprocket had been put on the wrong way round, because there's a step on the inside and it was way off, hence them cutting this piece of aluminium neck off the brake plate. Anyway, I've got it all nice and level now, and you can actually get the back wheel in now because this is closer to this side, and obviously I had to make a new spacer that goes behind the speedo drive, but it all fits in now. So we're back to a QD wheel. So I had the chain alignment correct, so this thing now will sit and pick up on this bracket here. So I'm just left with what I was going to do with this. I originally was thinking of welding a bracket on here, but when I looked at it all closely, even though they're nearly all welded points on the frame now, the Starfire frame, as opposed to the C15s that were, all the fittings were brazed, all this is still brazed in, so I didn't want to put heat on there and maybe, you know, ruin a bit of original factory brazing or whatever it is. So I had an idea which should work. So back to a cardboard template. What are we on today? Cheerios today. So I was thinking of, I've got the two holes here, using one of these holes, using this stub as a fixing point and bringing the material up here. So I end up with this plate with the 3 holes in it. So I'm going to make it out of a bit of 3mm alley, because I've got loads of, there should be a washer on the back of here anyway for the shock absorber. So the plate will make up the washer, but also give me this fixing point, which should give me this. So it still keeps, in case I need to put a bigger back sprocket on, I've got a fair bit of latitude up here for a bigger sprocket, and I can play around with this, centralise it. I mean, it is pretty spot on there if that was flush with the outside of this, so it should work. So I'm going to cut myself a bit of 2.5 or 3mm, see what I've got in alloy, and see how that goes. So I'll catch you in a short while. How are we doing, folks? So everything fits really well, quite pleased. So the tank, I think we've got the level of this correct, you know, with the level, the bike sat on flat level ground. It's very well mounted with our new rubbers. Obviously nothing metal touching anywhere, all rubber. I need a bung for this, obviously I've got to strip this back and do whatever I'm going to do with this. Also the position of the clutch cable running above that rubber round disc in the side and above the horseshoe rubber on the top. It runs down with the line of the frame here and runs in, and it's in any position, nice and free. We've got an incredible steering lock now, and we're still a finger away from the tank with the stanchions. I also was a bit concerned. I never checked the I never checked whether the fuel outlets had been in the right place, because obviously when I tried that other big tank off the Lightning, the taps were right back here and they would have interfered with these down tubes. Well, that's perfect, those two. Happy with the seat. I've got probably half a finger gap down there, nice and solid, and with that idea of captivating the shock absorber with the nut and bolt either side, but leaving enough thread on the other side to put another nut on the outside, so you don't have to slacken the shock absorber, you just slacken off the 2 nuts on the inside. These stay as they are. The seat comes off in minutes, in less than a minute. This has worked out great. So I've done it in 2.5mm aluminium, and it's absolutely solid and shiny, nice. Only takes a couple of minutes to take off, 2 nuts and it's out the way. So I'm quite pleased with that, and also found that in the box of bits, little rubber seat for the battery. So we're on the way. So I was going to start on the wiring harness, design something up for that next, but while I've come this far, I've got the oil tank on and all. I was thinking of might just strip the carb, see what it's like inside, clean it, stick a bit of fuel in it, just power up the CDI unit and just give the engine a run. So it's going to be the carb next and the wiring harness after. So up to now, yeah, quite pleased. I do like the little hump, I have to say, so I might stick with this. And I'll be looking out now for some aluminium guards So a 21-inch alley for the front and a wide 4-inch wide or 5-inch wide 18-inch for the back. So yeah, got a bit done today. So yeah, we'll catch you for the carburettor on the next one.